I'm hoping you guys are not getting sick of talking about the rut. Dylan?
No, never gets.
It's not at that point. If I'm still talking about the rut on the 25th of November,
I'll tell you to stop then.
yeah, but right now, we'll be talking about the second rut then, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it'll be perfect timing for the second rut. The second rut is the most missed time in the deer woods, and part of that's because you're not out there, you don't get to observe it. Part of it's because there are certain state agencies around the country, and I've looked at all these rut state agencies as I had that information at my fingertips in the past, and so someone don't even count the second rut. So they take, here's a second rut time period percentage of deer that come in this window right here. And then here's the primary rut, and draw this a little bit more. Here's a primary rut, and then here's the secondary rut, a bunch of, week, 10 days in between. So they'll take all of these does that are bred. Let's say this is 10%, and this is 90. Or let's say that's 10%. Let's say this is 85, because there might be a third rut that's 5%. But bottom line is they take all of this and create an average and say, well, that day is right, that average date, because it's skewed this way because of the 10, maybe another 5 down the road. So it's skewed to, this is the day of the rut, and that is November 10th is the average day. But it's pulled to the 10th because you have these higher percentages a month later and a month later after that, meaning remaining percentages of 10 and 5%. So really, peak rut, if you throw away this data, then might be November 5th, not the 10th. And that makes a big difference for the timing of the rut and your observations, and explains why in Michigan, for example, by the time you get to, now gun season's on the 15th, but by the time you get to the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, you're really not seeing a lot of rutting activity. There's still some hanging on, which I call the post rut. So I want to go through these phases. Where are you at? Where are we at right now? We're about right 25th of October. This is our area, and I'll talk about yours, but this is our area right here. 25th, could be the 22nd, 24th. I mean, right around there. Pre-rut starts. 30th, let's say it ends, the pre-rut, and I'll talk about why. So let's say we're right here on the 27th. So we're like, about right here. So we're just on the cusp. In fact, we're seeing bucks. We saw our 6-year-old junior, he was with a doe for about a day and a half, 10 dinger. And almost got a chance at him last night. We'll save that for another video, but 30 yards away, really close. Still tending that same doe. So we're starting to see that. We're starting to see some aggressive fighting. 27th, it just ramps up every single day. And to me, it's always a roller coaster of weather. The weather goes like this, but opportunities go up. I want to hunt here, 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 and downplay these low points in the rut. Even if I'm hunting every day, I might change my stand location. So we're still hunting the weather, playing the weather, because I see those peaks and valleys. And if you have the obscene amount of cameras that Dylan and I do out, like total on all the properties in 2 states, it is amazing what you actually see and how the weather suppresses movement or not. You'd have to be blind not to see it. So I'm looking at the pre-rut begins, whatever date that is, around the 30th. Look at the amount of does that are coming into estrus. So I'm looking at, like, down here, there's not a lot of does. All of a sudden, and there's a lot of does exponentially. They're just really starting to rock it up. Then you have full-blown rut, and then all of a sudden, this is going back down again to here. So it's like start of the pre-rut here, end of the rut down here, same level. In between, though, you have the pre-rut.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
He has some kids making some noise back there,
The
having some fun.
here.
Whole gang's here. So that pre-rut is ramping up. To me, the pre-rut ends, meaning sometimes bucks are more ready than does. And then all of a sudden you hit the lockdown and does are more ready than the number of bucks that are out there sometimes. Like, meaning you have a ratio, like a normal ratio is around 3-to-1. And those are other things too. Like if you're only seeing 10 does for every buck, rest assured there's habitat in your neighborhood where people are seeing more bucks than does. Lack of pressure, better food, more cover, doe management, not planting a lot in the summer to build your doe herd. There's ways that you can manipulate that. So, but rest assured, if you're seeing bad ratios, it's not a state agency a problem, it's the area you hunt problem, habitat problem. The bottom line is you get into this, doesn't matter if it's 3-to-1 like normal or 10-to-1 because it's skewed, you have bad habitat food and apply a lot of hunting pressure. There's a lot more does all of a sudden exponentially coming into heat. Not all of them, it could be a third of them, could be 20% of them, but it's enough to where almost every buck gets invited to the party. All at once, they're there. Bucks are looking around, all of a sudden these does just start a flurry of activity, that number's going up. And then for about 4 days, around here, October 30th through the November 2nd, could be the 3rd, it's all of a sudden, well, the rut hasn't even started yet. Well, for one, you didn't have older bucks in the pre-rut, so you didn't see any rutting activity. Older bucks will display 100 times more sign than a 1.5-year-old buck, a yearling. As he ages, rub, scrape, rutting behavior just explodes. And so if you don't have older bucks, collection of older bucks, there's even some cool studies out there that equate number of bucks and doe, or number of bucks and age of bucks to the amount of sign. So you can look at the amount of sign per acre. Well, you know, you really have to compare habitat to habitat. You can't have apples and oranges, but bottom line is there's a ratio there where as the age and number of bucks goes up in a given area, there will be exponentially more rubbing activity, scraping activity, rutting activity overall. So if you're not seeing it in the pre-rut, it's probably because you don't have that age structure. So then you get into the rut lockdown. Well, they're locked down with does, and they're usually with them for 1 to 2 days. That's what we see on cameras. We see the same buck with the same doe in the same location for a day and a half. Pretty cool. And you see how he doesn't range too far because he doesn't want to expose her to other bucks and get them taken. He doesn't want to keep having to fight them off. They're pretty smart about it. And they only breed 2 to 4 does in this entire phase right here. It's not counting the second rut, but not a lot. There's not more in the second rut that they breed. So they don't breed a lot. And so they're with them for 2 or 3 days. Takes them for a few days to find that next one. Takes them longer to find the next one. You can imagine as this curve is coming down. So they really start moving around. That's the full rut. But when you get into that rut lockdown, it appears like the rut's not even begun. And if it had started in your area, it seems like what happened? We're having good weather. Scrapes aren't being hit. What's going on? It's called the lockdown. And that happens right here. And then it goes into full-blown rut. And that's the longest period. Could be 10 days, a solid week to 10 days. And that's when, you know, pre-rut, I'm hunting lightly in the morning. Bedding areas, my first bedding area sits. Really focused on the afternoon food source movement because that's when every deer is going to there. So bucks are following does, or going to doe groups, things like that. Then you get into the rut lockdown. And when you get into that rut lockdown phase, then not much going on. That's where you hunt. You can start hunting all day because you never know when a buck is going to get off a doe. Bred her, been with her for a couple days, and he's looking for his next doe conquest. And he's going to leave and move. Is that middle of the day? Is that middle of the morning? Is that afternoon? Who knows? So I'm focusing on, especially midday, I don't want to sit in a food source movement all day because they're in bedding areas, in big long transition areas in between bedding areas during the day. So I'd rather sit in a bedding area in the morning, maybe sit in that till 1 or 2 in the afternoon, switch to a food source and sit till 6 in that location. Maybe not on the food source, but to the food source, a water hole off to the side. Because then I get the best of both worlds. I get the full morning and midday movement during the rut lockdown, and then I get the afternoon, evening rut movement with that doe movement and general deer movement to a food source. I'm not doing that during the pre-rut. I'm just focusing on morning, afternoon, or, you know, before dark. And there's really not much going on during the day. We see that on cameras. We might have a night where it's like, man, we're looking through buck pictures, just zooming through like this. And you're like, man, must be getting to 10 o'clock because you're looking backwards, thinking you started at 6 a.m. You're looking backwards and you only made it to 4. Man, there's a lot of pictures. It's because they're so active, but you don't see any activity in the middle of the day. Rut lockdown, full-blown rut, really hunting the same kind of stand locations. I'm looking for all-day cruising movement, all-day cruising opportunity. I want to be in that X movement between food, between bedding, but not closer to either one unless it's a morning hunt. Then I might switch to an X movement stand, which all day stands are few and far between because you don't have that perfect movement in thick cover between bedding and food where you're not spooking out one or the other going in at the wrong time, meaning you don't go into a bedding area in the afternoon, you don't go to a food source in the morning because you're going to spook deer. So I'm looking at how can I score my best day during these phases? What are they doing? So how can I score the day? You know, in the pre-rut, I'm looking at a score 10 out of 10 in the morning, 10 out of 10 in the afternoon. I want to sit in a morning stand, evening stand. If on paper it looks good, I'm getting a 20 out of 20. Where you get into the rut lockdown, you have to think about middle of the day, what's going on in the morning, what's going on in the afternoon. Give yourself a 30 for the day, a 10, a 10, a 10. And full-blown rut, same thing. And all of a sudden, around here by the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, nothing to do with hunting pressure, you just don't see much moving because it's starting to get past that primary rut. I don't care what the state agency says. I'm looking at just the primary rut, scoring it only on those deer that are that percentage. I'm not weighting it with the second and third rut. Do you understand how that changes that percentage down here? You know, when you tally in, you just do the math yourself, but if you tally in, say, 85% for this period of the does, and then you add in 10% 30 days later and 5% 30 days after that, if you average that all together by day, it skews your days by up to a week. And some of the state agencies, a lot of them do that. Some of them even do it by county, so it's really blown off all over the chart. So I'm only focused on that first part. I'm not saying there's not rutting going on until the 18th or even the 22nd. The bottom line is you're just looking at what you can expect in the woods, what you can hunt, and what you need to plan by. When I'm getting into the post-rut period, when this really starts slowing down, the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th was when we see it slow down. We've seen some good rut movement, 17th, 18th, some big range, long range, big buck cruisers. And they're moving, but once you get past the 18th, think about this. A mature buck will lose up to 25% of his body weight during that rut. He is working hard. He needs to recuperate. When is this period of the rut? It's right before wintertime. Right when temperatures are starting to get cold, right when they have the most extreme needs on their body for the entire year. Summer is not a time of need. January is, February is, March is, even December in some states. So they can't keep rutting for weeks and weeks at a time. So think about it, by the 13th, think about the activity from the 25th of October to the 13th that this mature buck has been on uptick with. Rub, scrapes, moving, even if he's just moving in his bedroom. He's not really moving out of a 5-acre area. He's just spending a lot of time on his feet. He's burning energy. They can't keep that going at that pace. And that's why when you get into this post-rut period where there's still a flurry, there could be a flurry of rutting activity, I'm really focusing on those afternoon, evening food sources. It's almost like I'm going back to pre-rut times, but I'm really being careful with my morning sits to make sure I'm not spooking out a great afternoon sit, because when you have a pile of does going into hidden food sources that haven't been hunter pressured by this time, lots of properties have been hunter pressured, 95%, that's why I call it the 5% club. A lot of them have been hunter pressured by that time, so it really sticks out to the local mature buck herd. They are traveling far and ranging wide for another doe. They're doing it on good weather days. They're not doing when it's 80 degrees on an unseasonably warm temperature in northern Indiana at this time frame. They're doing it when there's good cruising weather, when it's not super windy, and then when they get into an area, they're focusing on that doe food source movement in the afternoon portion of the day. And that's an outstanding time to watch a herd of does go by, file by one after another, smaller bucks, medium-sized bucks, and then that oldest buck in the neighborhood steps out, or he's already with the does right before dark. And so he's really looking for that last. And to me, that's where you end up with some of the most hellacious buck fights. So imagine two long-range mature buck cruisers. They find one doe that's in heat, and they both go to town on each other, just pounding each other. Just look online, some of the vicious bloodthirsty fights that these bucks get into at that time. It's not happening in the pre-rut. It's not happening in the rut lockdown because there's does for everybody. Not even happening too much in the first part of the full-blown rut because, again, that second doe is easier to find than the third and the fourth doe if they're going to breed that many during the rut. So great food source movement time here, food source movement time in a pre-rut, and then you get into the lockdown, full-blown rut. And then, of course, second rut, to me, takes place, again, this is an exponential amount of does coming in, but you can take this rut lockdown phase, full-blown rut, these days right here, a couple weeks, fast forward about 30 days, and that's when that second rut is. So I'm really around here, I'm looking at the end of November for the first 10 days of December, really looking for that second rut opportunity, which is muzzleloader around here, late bow. A lot of people aren't in the woods, but it is an outstanding time. And I say an often missed time because, again, you have state agencies reporting this kind of stuff where they're really not showing those percentages like that. So really important that you don't miss all this. You know what phase you're in. And these are personal observations. My all-weather whitetail book goes through each one of these phases, how the weather relates to that, playing poker when you go sit in your deer woods, really looking at it like, how can I go in with a stacked deck when I go in to hunt? But we talk about, I have the my rut web class, how to navigate the rut, go into greater detail with a dozen videos or more, how to design your habitat and your property. We go to do that as a living. 5 of us with our team will go to almost 300 properties a year, but for a lot cheaper, you can buy our web class, how to design your whitetail property. And I go to a lot of clients that have done that, and they're really proud to show me their design before when we get there and say, how did I do? And I always say, hey, wait till we're done. Let's compare. It's amazing when they're 90% of the way there, 85% of the way there, and you can tell they really paid attention, and they're going to experience a lot of success really fast, and you can too. So check those web classes out. Really popular through Christmas, all the books too. But this is really important. And adding 5 to 10 days, what does that mean? That means if I'm talking southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, into mostly northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, over into Michigan, New York, northern Ohio, northern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, go over into Vermont, New Hampshire. That's that line for these dates that are pretty appropriate. You go down to a lower line, where you get down into maybe southern Iowa, Missouri, over into southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Ohio, even West Virginia, Kentucky. You can add up to 10 days to that. Kansas, add up to 10 days. It's kind of a wide band in the west, and that narrows up into like New Jersey, for example, might be more this plus 5 to 10 days. Add to all these dates. So that's how you can look at it. That's how we used to follow the rut. We go down and hunt southeast Ohio because we looked at it like, I went down there the Monday before Thanksgiving and shot a target buck where we weren't getting any rutting activity at home. It was a perfect time. Right after our opening day, I actually left on Sunday, hunted Monday, shot that target buck, and was home before, Thanksgiving. And I followed a giant cold front where the temperatures dropped 30 degrees. I was on the heels of that. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds, got down there in the stand, sat for about an hour in the morning, and shot a target buck. And it was all based on the weather and the fact that the rut lasts about a week longer in those locations. So we've learned that the hard way. Meaning you go down there thinking we're going to see rut sign and activity for the pre-rut the end of October. No, we're about a week off in those locations. So think about that timing for you, and really appreciate you watching. Really enjoy the rut. It happens fast. I hate when I hear people, it's November 4th and the rut hasn't even begun yet. No, you're just missing it. Get in the woods. Like I say, even if it's bad weather days, we're sitting in a stand somewhere, enjoying it. We just aren't sitting in our best stands, our most invasive stands. Our sit management is really key. And when you recognize these phases right here and you know how and where to hunt them on your property or on the public land you hunt, then you can experience consistent success in deer hunting and mature buck hunting, target buck hunting for the rest of your life.